Hi everybody, welcome to my latest video. Before I get into things, I just wanted to say thank you. I've snuck over the 9,000 subscriber mark and I think that's really cool. So to everybody who watches my videos and has subscribed, thanks very much. Anybody out there who hasn't subscribed and wants to, hit the button below and I'm on the push for 10,000. So again, thanks very much. This is really nice to see the numbers growing and I really do love all the interaction in the comments as well. So say hi if you want to. If you have any questions or comments about anything, say hello in the comments and I will always respond. So enough of that, let's get into this video. This one sees me doing my most hated off-grid task, but it also sees me doing one of my favorite jobs. And I also investigate the green status of the swimming pool. I've done nothing to prevent anything turning green, and so we're going to take a look and see what the pool looks like after about 10 days. So let's get into the video and I'll see you at the end. Good morning. We've finally reached the season of horrifically hot weather. True, July and June had their hot days, but August is full steam ahead on the over 35 days. And it's those days that I really struggle with. Anything below that, somehow I can get by, but yeah, these hot days in August are very brutal, very brutal. And perhaps you can tell that I am sleepy. I should have been up way earlier, but it's hard to get up early to do work when it's hard to sleep. So I probably don't get too many hours of sleep when the weather's like this. Maybe 5 or 6 if I'm lucky. A lot of tossing and turning, a lot of waking up. And I really should have gotten up a lot earlier because I have to start. Hopefully I can finish, we'll see. Moving this pile of firewood that I had delivered last week. It is definitely a beautiful morning, but I don't think I have much time before it heats up a lot. So I'm gonna do my best to move what I can, starting right now. This wood is to go down the track to my brand new firewood store, wheelbarrow by wheelbarrow. I think stacking the firewood today, as well as moving it, is gonna be a step too far, way too ambitious for this morning. I just want to get this off of my friend and neighbor's land, down to my land, and then I'll deal with it later on. I'm gonna also go through a whole bunch of info about firewood, how much it costs me, the type that I use. I'll do that a little later on when I've had some coffee and breakfast, and hopefully when it's not so windy. So let's get moving this firewood. It's not going to be the funnest job that I ever do, but I'll definitely be very happy when it's done. Are you going to get under my feet as I'm wheelbarrowing up and down this little road? I can't imagine a way that you can be helpful to me on this. But it's nice to see you this morning. All right, let's get started. So there is really nothing fun about this job. I'm just gonna get to it, move that big pile from up there down here, and try to do it before it gets too hot. So I'm gonna check in again later on when the pile is hopefully moved, or at least partially moved. Well, I did it. I moved the whole pile of wood. It's about 11 in the morning. It's gotta be over 30 degrees. And it's not very nice in the sun. So it wasn't my favorite task. And I'm very, very happy that I pushed through. But I'm very unhappy that I'm gonna have to stack all this eventually. I realized that I shouldn't have put that firewood in a pile over there because it's just gonna be harder to stack from over there. But I wasn't thinking this morning. It was too early for thinking. So it's been a fairly challenging but very satisfying little morning of work. I'm gonna chat all about firewood later on in this video, and right now I'm gonna get these shoes off. This is not weather for wearing shoes and socks, let me tell you. Drink some water and probably jump in the splash pool. So I'm gonna check in again a little later on today. Okay, shoes are off, and I've come to investigate the splash pool. A little green. It's been a week. You can see there's some green stuff here. And it's not surprising. I haven't had it properly covered because the tarp is extremely annoying. I need a better solution. And I haven't really done anything to stop anything from turning green. So I'm gonna set up my little pump experiment and run it for a couple hours, and we can come back and see what it's done to the color of the pool. I'm still going in here. It's not so green that I won't swim in it. So this is my weird pump contraption. Inside here is a small, I don't know what kind of pump it is. It's sort of aquarium style pump. And basically the idea is that it's going to sit in this bucket in this green water, and this green is going to keep the algae out, and it's going to sink to the bottom in theory. Get in there. Get in there. Come on. And then I've got this pipe that I'm just going to stick over the top, and then I'm going to plug it all in, and in theory it should mean that the water just kind of continues to circulate around. So this pump will take the water out of this area, which is actually very clean underneath. It's just the algae on top. It'll run it into this pool, and then it'll come out the overflow, and then it'll just continue to move the water, continue to run. And so in theory, the water won't be so still in the pool, and maybe the algae won't have a chance to form. So yeah, I truly don't know what's going to happen here. I haven't even really tested out this pump. So hopefully it works. Fingers crossed. Okay, things are happening. Things are happening. All right. This plan might just work after all. So this is the before. I'll come back in a couple hours and see what it looks like after. It should start spilling out of that spout reasonably soon. So I'm very, very curious to see if this works or not. It's highly experimental. I have a feeling it probably won't do much, but having the water moving will just give me more of a peace of mind that it's not super duper gross, only partially gross, and I'm completely willing to get into partially gross water. So I'm gonna have some breakfast. I still haven't eaten. I'm very hungry. And then we'll come back and check on this in a few hours and see what it looks like. Well, I've been running the pump thing for a couple of hours, and I'd say it looks slightly less green. It's hard to say. It doesn't seem totally uninviting yet though, so I'm going to get in very shortly and enjoy a little splash around. But before I do, let's go over here. Whew, it's cold. And look at how clear this water is. This is the basin that just goes directly out of the spring. And compare that to the grungy algae stuff over there. So having this separated out really does make a big difference, which is what I was hoping for. That was the plan. So I wonder if I can find a way to have the pump at the same rate as the spring fills, therefore taking water out of this basin into here directly and bypassing that. I don't know, it'll need some thought, but I'm very excited to have a little splash around because it is very, very hot. And the water does look a little clearer than before, and that's very good news. So, I'm gonna have a little swim, and I'll see you guys a bit later. It's later in the day. I've had a little splash around. I'm feeling very refreshed after the hard work of moving that big pile of firewood, and I thought I would give a chat about firewood stuff. So this load of firewood is supposed to be 3 cubic meters of a wood called platano. I've tried to figure out the translation of it, and the best I can do is London plane, which, who knows really. I've never heard of platano. I've never heard about it in Portugal either. In Portugal, the most common woods that are used seem to be pine, eucalyptus, mimosa, oak, and I think you can also get ash, and probably some other things that I don't know about, like platano. So this cost me 150 euros, and it seemed like a good deal. And that's including delivery. I also have bought oak in the past, and that's quite a bit more expensive. I don't remember the exact price, but I'm gonna say it's maybe like 30% more expensive than what I paid for this, for around the same amount. Apparently this platano stuff is similar to oak in that it's a long burning, slow burning wood. So it's not gonna be what you use to make the fire hot, but it's good for sort of simmering overnight and burning slowly after you have a nice hot fire going. Put some big logs on and they'll do you for a while. So in combination with this, I'm also going to need to pick up something to get the fire going nice and hot. The first year I had my wood stove, I ended up using a lot of pine and eucalyptus, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't dry and it really gummed up my stove. So you've got to be careful about that. That's the reason I'm buying firewood now, so I can just make sure that what I'm getting has been sitting in the sun for several months and it's going to be nice and dry. So I'm also going to aim to get probably an order of eucalyptus or possibly mimosa from some friends. If I can put the energy in, there's always people out there looking for help clearing their mimosa. It's invasive and it's good for getting the fire started. If I were to help friends clear mimosa now, it wouldn't be ready until next year, I don't think, but it's a great wood for just getting really hot fires. Pine I like to avoid. I'll use pine in small pieces as kindling, but pine is quite notorious for gumming up the inside of a flue pipe as well. I think because of the tars that are inside of it, especially if it isn't seasoned. If it's really dry, it's okay, or if you're using it in very small pieces to just get things going, that's okay as well. But for the most part, I think I just prefer to avoid it if I can. For getting the fire started, it's really common around these parts to use pine needles and also pine cones. So you make a little nest of the needles, stick a pine cone on there, and then get a little bit of kindling in the form of branches, twigs, and things like that. And then on that, I would put some small pieces of mimosa or eucalyptus or small pieces of pine. Get it going, keep feeding it. Last year I used a lot of fig because it's what we had. And then you start putting this bigger stuff on after a little while. So I feel like I've finally gotten the hang of making fires. And I actually do kind of enjoy making fires. It's everything else about the fire stuff that I don't like. I like watching the fires and I like making the fires, but all of the hauling and organizing and stacking and chopping to size, a lot of these pieces are going to be too big for my wood stove. A lot of that stuff is quite annoying. It's probably my least favorite thing about living off-grid. I love being warm, but I don't necessarily love all the work that goes into doing that. But sitting in front of a cozy fire kind of makes it all worthwhile. And I feel a lot better that I'm prepared this year The past couple of years I've been scrambling to get firewood at the last minute. The first year I didn't even have my wood stove in until mid-November, and it was so cold. Those stone buildings really do hold the cold. So firewood is very important. I'm really excited that I've gotten my act together and I have quite a bit. I don't know how long it's going to last me. I always try to keep track, but last year I ended up getting a couple truckfuls of oak, so let's say about 1.5 times the size of this. But I also had loads and loads of stuff from my friend's place. My friend bought a place down the road, and my friend had a barn full of firewood that the guy she bought it from left in there, so I ended up burning a lot of that. There was loads of olive in there, loads of old fig branches to get the fires going and stuff. So I'm gonna be better about keeping track of how much firewood I use this year. It's difficult to guess what I used last year because I got so much of it for free. So that's firewood. It's probably something that costs, I want to say 400 euros-ish to heat for the whole winter. Maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. I'm gonna, again, be monitoring a bit more closely. One thing that's a bit frustrating about this load of firewood I just got is that I was very specific about the size. I didn't want anything larger than 30 centimeters because of the size of my wood stove. And I'm obviously going to be a bit flexible on that. I'm not going to be measuring every piece, but a fair few pieces of wood are a lot bigger than that. And so I've got some serious chainsawing in my future, which is what I was hoping to avoid. It's a little irritating, but it's not the end of the world. And I just wanted to mention that in case you're somebody who has a firewood order in your future, in case you have a small wood box, oftentimes the wood will be not necessarily the size that you're hoping for. But it's still crazy hot out here, and I can't bring myself to stack this firewood today. So I'm just gonna take it easy for the rest of the day. Maybe go back in the pool. Maybe do some drawings for my tool shed and some other plans that I have, and just do some low-key work. So stacking is for another day. Chainsawing as well. I'll probably haul some more firewood down for my friend Sinead's and stack it here. So I've got a lot of firewood work still in my future. But that's the nature of firewood. It is quite labor intensive, but I'll be happy when it's all done. So anyway, I'm blabbing on. Enough about firewood. I'm gonna relax for the rest of the day, and I'll see you tomorrow for something different. Good morning from a new day. It's another beautiful one. Even though it's a lot later than I was expecting, I'm super sleepy. Even though I slept in until 9:30. That's crazy for me. I'm usually up at about 7:30 or so, but I have been having some problems sleeping. It's quite hot in there this time of year. So, since it's a late start and since I'm feeling pretty sluggish, I'm going to take it easy today. I'm meeting some friends at 2 for a coffee, and then I'm going to go into town after that to get some groceries and find a solution for my green swimming pool. So this morning I'm just going to do a couple of jobs that are pretty low-key that I've been meaning to do for a very long time. The first one is point this wall behind me. I've got a bucket of lime putty mixed with fine sand, 3-to-1, which is the mixture I use for pointing the walls. And it's been sitting there for ages, and I just have to keep filling it with water, which is annoying. Sometimes I forget, sometimes I wonder if it's been too long. Amazingly, it always rehydrates, which is always surprising. So I'm going to put it hopefully on this wall today. Before I get started with the pointing, I've got a little bit more chipping to do. Basically, that's making space in between the rocks that have a really small gap in between them. My mom did loads and loads of chipping when she was here on her last trip, and she packed out this initial sort of reinforcement layer when she was here as well. But there are a few little bits that just need a bit more work. So I'm going to chip out a few of those spaces that are remaining. You can also do these with an angle grinder. I can't bear to put the safety gear on to use that, and it is a little bit overkill for the amount of work that I have to do. So I'm just going to do a bit of chipping, and then I'll get into the pointing. So it definitely should go in a lot deeper than this. This is very surface level, but honestly I'm not going to be too picky. I just don't want it to be fully touching. I just want to have a small place for the lime to go, so that'll be fine. But a larger gap is definitely better. Some of the stones are super hard, like this one, so maybe I'll try this guy. Well, these stones aren't cooperating, but I'll get it in the end. So I'm going to keep on chipping and check back in again when I'm ready to put some lime in the cracks. Okay, I've done some chipping, and now I need to do some wall wetting. But unfortunately, I don't know where my little sprayer thing is, so I'll be splashing it with a bucket. So my goal this morning isn't to get this whole thing pointed, it's mainly just to get rid of this bucket of lime so I don't have to keep rehydrating it all the time. So I'm just going to start around the corner here and probably work my way in this section. And then there's some big holes that I think I'd like to cram the lime into because it's just a faster way to work and I can get rid of more of the material that way. This isn't an ideal time to be doing pointing. The weather is way too hot for this. I should have got up a lot earlier because the sun's probably going to shine on this in about an hour. But I have a burlap sheet that I'm going to wet and hang over this area so it won't dry out quite as quickly. And I'm hoping that'll be okay. So I'm going to show you a little bit of pointing, but I actually did a whole video about pointing. You can check it up here somewhere. That goes into a bit more detail. So this isn't my usual relaxed pointing situation. I just kind of want to get it done. But let's start with this hole here. I have this stone right here, which I think will fit in there very well. So let's get this guy in place. That should use up a bit of the material, and I think it'll look pretty good. This is called a tuck pointer, the right tool for the job. You can get them in different widths. This is the only one I have though. This is definitely not the right tool for the job. I think this is a garden spade, but it works for me. Press it in. Give it a little tappy tap. And when you're putting the stones in, or when I'm putting the stones in, I try to do it so I leave a little bit of a space. But I've put enough of the lime putty pointing stuff in there that it's squashed out, so now I can kind of just smooth it around the stone and it should be easier. If you're going to be doing some pointing, probably don't recommend doing either as I say or as I do. My only advice would be, you know, do what works for you. That's what I do. It gets where it needs to go. It stays there. It's probably not the fastest technique, probably not the easiest way to do it, and it's probably not the way that ends up looking the best, but it works for me and I'm not going to stress out about it too much. I do find it extremely relaxing doing this. Less so today because I'm kind of in a race against the hot sun, but usually I'll just dedicate a whole day to pointing and kind of just go for a whole section, and they're some of my funnest, most relaxing days. So I don't need to work this too much to try to get it perfect. I really just need to put the stuff in the crack, and then there's another stage after this later on where it gets more refined. Another couple stages actually. So right now it's just about getting the material into the holes, letting it dry for a little bit, and then I'll show you the next stages a little later on. People often have different preferences for how much of a gap they like between the stones. So for example, gaps like this to me are pretty perfect. This little bit here is probably too narrow. That's kind of a bit narrow as well. This definitely too thick. This part here is going to be a weird gap that's a little bit too small to put a stone in there and too big to kind of look how I want it. This part I probably will find a stone to fit in there. Again, that's too small. So, you know, it's just, you're working with the rocks and you just kind of do what you can. I'll probably find a long, narrow stone to fit in here if I can. And yeah, along here looks pretty good. So you're just kind of letting the wall sort of lead what you do. And I don't know what to do about this. This big gap will definitely annoy me. Maybe I can find a small stone to fit in there. We'll see. So that's it. I'm basically just putting some lime on the wall. Enjoying the process immensely. So the mix is gone. It's in the wall, it's in the cracks, and I'm really happy with how it's gone. The sun is creeping in, so I really need to get this covered up ASAP. I'm gonna use that cloth, hang it from the top, and keep it wet just to keep this protected so it doesn't dry too quickly. It's gonna get annihilated in the sun and dry really fast, and that's very bad for lime. So yeah, I'm happy with how much I got done. I wish I had a little bit more just to finish some of the other bits in between. So I love pointing. I probably would have just kept going and going if it weren't for running out of the mix and also the sun creeping in. Nobody wants to work in the direct sunlight in August. That would be absolutely insane. Even though today is only 34, it's a day that's not going to get super duper hot, only super hot. So I can cope with that. But for now, I'm going to cover this up. Back from town. It's 5 o'clock. It's very hot. The sun is directly on this wall, which is not ideal. But this next stage involving this brush is kind of time sensitive because the lime has to be a certain softness in order to get it done. So basically, I'll pull this thing up later, but just to give you an idea of what I'm going to be doing, you kind of, I think this is called a churning brush. Come this way. I think this is called a churning brush, and basically what you're doing is, I think someone in my mouth there, whacking the wall with this thing to push the lime into the wall and to get rid of the little bits on the edges that are kind of sticking off the stone. Let's take a closer look. So this part that I put on already, it's actually quite dry on the top, and that's because it went on in quite a thin layer. So I'll wet that down before I whack it again. This stuff is a lot softer, and it's probably the perfect stage for what I call the wacky brush. So you'll notice the little bits on the edge will fly off. The rest of it will get kind of stippled and pushed into the wall a little further. If you do this while it's too wet, it'll all just fly everywhere, and if you do it while it's too dry, nothing will really happen. And then I'll come at it with a paintbrush, smooth all this out, and that's basically my pointing process. No idea if it's the right way, but it gets the stuff on the wall, and I feel like it looks okay. Good morning. It's beautiful out here. And my head is telling me I should take advantage of this cool morning and go down and stack the firewood, but my heart is telling me that I want to be inside working on the closet. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm really into that project, and I'm probably just going to keep pushing forward on that until it's as done as possible with the materials that I have. But before I do, let's take a look behind cloth number 1 and see how the pointing looks. So it looks pretty good to me. This is where I want to come and try to scrape off all the white stuff so it looks a little more crisp and nice. But I'm really happy with that. And yesterday in town I bought one of these guys, so I'm going to keep it nice and sprayed and covered so it doesn't get too dry too quickly. If it does, it'll crack and not really set properly. So happy with it. I'm gonna spray it, scrape it. I love pointing. I just find it super relaxing, and I hope you enjoyed watching that process. It's been a video full of ups and downs. Firewood is not my favorite thing. The swimming pool turned green, and I need to find a solution. And then the pointing just made everything be okay. At the end of this video, there was mention of a closet project. That's coming up. I've been working on a whole bunch of different things all at the same time, and sometimes the way the videos get edited just works out in a different way than I was expecting. So there was mention of the closet project. It's underway, and it's going to be in a video very soon. So enough of all that. I'm going to say goodbye from this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment with any questions, whatever, just to say hello. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.